Hello, and welcome to our Interfaith Action on Climate Change breakout session. It's excited to have all of you here. I'm Mindy Aller, and I'm the Regional Coordinator for the North Wind region of Citizens Climate Lobby and the moderator for this session. Before I introduce our guest presenter, I just want to give an acknowledgement to Reverend Melanie Mullen, the Director of Reconciliation, Justice, and Creation Care for the Episcopal Church, who'd originally planned to be with us for this session as well. She's deeply engaged in other important justice issues right now, so we look forward to having her join us for a future CCL event. Today, I'm pleased to have Reverend Susan Hendershot with us to share a bit about her work with Interfaith Power and Light. Reverend Hendershot is president of the Regeneration Project and Interfaith Power and Light. She's ordained in the Christian Church, the Disciples of Christ, and has many qualifications for this work that you can read in her bio. Prior to my work with CCL, I was the director of the Minnesota affiliate for Interfaith Power and Light, while Susan was the director of Iowa Interfaith Power and Light and a mentor to me. So I am delighted to have this opportunity to work with her again and have her share a bit about her work in this session. We have just 20 minutes for this session, so if we get to the end and you're still wanting more, we've actually accomplished our goal. So we'll share information about how to continue the conversation at the end of our session. Susan will have some opening comments to ground our conversation, and I have a few starter questions, but we also want to open it up to questions from you as much as we can. So you can submit questions in the chat to Ask Questions Peterson Toscano. So if you look for Ask Questions, that should make it easy to find him. And with that, I give you Reverend Susan Hendershot.
Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. I am out here in our office in Oakland, so it's still morning for me. So I'll say good morning and good afternoon, depending upon where you are. And I want to thank Mindy for inviting me to be with you today for this session. I'm really excited to be here. And thanks to all of you and to CCL for the great work that you're doing. We have really enjoyed our partnership with you, and I know lots of our state affiliates are working with some of your local chapters around the country as well. So thanks for that. And Mindy's right, I want to ground us just a little bit, especially for those who don't know too much about Interfaith Power and Light. And I am going to, I have a few slides, so I'm gonna share my screen with you here really quickly. So Interfaith Power and Light, we were started exactly 20 years ago. 2020 is our 20th anniversary, and we were started as a religious response to global warming. So looking at the gap and who was working on issues around climate, and there was a real gap with faith communities at the time. So that was how we started. And our vision, so Interfaith Power and Light envisions a stable climate where humans live in right and just relationship, interconnected with a healthy, thriving natural world. And our mission is to inspire and mobilize people of faith and conscience to take bold and just action on climate change. And so about a year ago, we actually worked on a set of values for our IPL network. And I wanted to share those with you because being a faith-based organization, we can frame things just a little bit differently than maybe some other organizations can. So because we embrace faith and spirituality, we are grounded in the interconnectedness of the sacred, the natural world, and one another. Because we embrace justice, we act with inclusion and respect, working in solidarity with vulnerable and marginalized communities. Because we embrace hope, we are empowered to live into our vision for the world for present and future generations. Because we embrace courage, we speak with a prophetic voice to create equity and restore wholeness to all. And because love is central to who we are committed to ending the suffering caused by climate change. So that is our strategic framework, our vision, our mission, and our values that I wanted to ground us in as we started this conversation today. So I know that Mindy and I are going to have a little bit of conversation, and Mindy, I want to invite you to share your questions with me.
Yeah. Well, first, can you just share a little bit about how IPL does its work?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have worked to sort of visualize what our approach is, and I call it our systems approach. IPL has been known for a long time for our programs like Cool Congregations and Faith Climate Action Week, but that's actually only a very small segment of what we actually do. So as I look at how I visualize our systems approach, I think of our programs, our policy advocacy, voter mobilization, and our state affiliates. So many times people come in the door through our programs like Cool Congregation, and sometimes they come in the door, as you all know, through policy advocacy. That's really what they want to be most engaged in. And of course, our goal is whatever way people come in the door to IPL, we want to work them up that ladder of engagement so that they do really become advocates for climate policy. This year, we've started a voter mobilization campaign called our Faith Climate Voter Campaign. And that's because we recognize that in order to move policy where we need it to be, we really have to get climate champions elected to office at all levels, at the local, the state, and the federal level. And of course, our state affiliates bring this perspective of working on the ground in 40 states around the country, where they do, build those grassroots and grass top supporters for those policy initiatives at the local and state level, as well as what IPL National does at the national level. So that's just a little snapshot of how we do our work. And of course, you can go to our website and find out more information about the specifics of all of our programs, our policy, and our voter mobilization work, as well as where to find your state affiliates. Oh, you're muted, Mindy.
Thank you. How can CCL members and participants here today connect directly to your work with IPL?
Yeah, well, of course, you can go directly, as I said, to our website and sign up there to get our emails. That gets you our action alerts, information about our programs as we send that out. And also you can find our state affiliate map. So all the states that are in blue are our current state affiliates around the country. So you can see we cover 40 states according to this map. And it's a great way, on our website, you can actually find out the contact information for your affiliate if you're not already familiar with them, and get connected to them as well, which we really encourage people to do. It's sort of a win-win. You get both the federal and national information from us, and then the really focused state and local level information from the state affiliate. So we hope that you will be able to go there and do that. And additionally, you can find us on social media. So here's our full contact information, but we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can find us there and follow us there as well. And we hope you will do that, and also, like and share our content, because we all know how important that is to spread the message.
As we look around our world today, we see lots of things that are dividing or attempting to divide us in our society. And so I really wonder if you could talk a little bit about how an interfaith approach to climate change can really help in bridging divides.
Yeah, thanks, Mindy. That's a really great question. I mean, I think we do like our silos, and of course we all know that that's not the way the world really works. I think the unique thing that the interfaith voice brings to the climate conversation is that we can focus and center on our values, which is much different. It's actually a way to bridge the conversation and look for what we have in common, rather than sort of the religious divisions. How are we different? How are we distinct from one another? but, you know, Pope Francis calls it our common home. And so the reality is that we share this planet together. I loved Catherine Hayhoe's message, if people caught it in the little video before we started, you know, talking similarly about all the things we share on this earth that bring us together. And, you know, one of the things I've really learned working in the interfaith arena is that, you know, all major religious traditions call their supporters, their followers, to care for the earth or care for creation, and they all call us to care for one another, and especially call us to care for those who are vulnerable. And we know that those who are vulnerable are, in fact, those who are most highly impacted by climate change. And so, you know, I think as we consider that, as we consider other values that we have in common, you know, we think about our love for our children or our grandchildren, those coming after us. We think about our work around compassion, being compassionate with one another, and our work in the faith community and working on climate connects to all of those things. And I think that's a really great way to bridge the conversation by meeting people where they are and then talking about our common values and what we share together. I'm going to stop the screen share now too, so we can get back to the more full view here.
How could a faith-based approach be more intersectional when it comes to justice issues, when we're talking so much about justice these days?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that, you know, this moment is really an opportunity for us to think deeply about what isn't working. You know, there are things that aren't working for everyone, and sort of how do we bridge that? One of the stories that I tell when I talk to many groups about my work is the story about how I came to the issue of climate change, which is, you know, I was serving local congregations. I was working most passionately on the issue of hunger. And there was a moment that happened for me where the issue of hunger was connected to climate change for me in a way that it hadn't been before. And I recognized that if I wanted to actually solve hunger, I needed to work on climate. So it was this eye-opening moment. And there are a lot of issues like that for people of faith, for congregations, all over the country who have been working for decades or for as long as we can remember on specific issues, whether it's hunger or clean water, of course, disaster relief, we know, issues around immigration, and of course, you know, these structural issues that exist in our country and globally, one of those being systemic racism. And, you know, as I look at that issue, as I learn more from those around me that are helping me become more educated about the issue, you know, this is a historic problem for us in the United States. We can go back to Jim Crow, we can go back to issues around redlining, siting of fossil fuel plants or other you know, chemical plants, and these were just considered throwaway communities. And so, of course, those places are most heavily impacted by pollution. They are most heavily impacted by all kinds of health issues that are related to that pollution. And of course, they are also most heavily impacted by things like COVID-19. We're seeing the connections with that during the pandemic. And we're also recognizing that sort of this way of considering some communities sort of less than important than other communities it has really deep roots in this country. And so one of the things that we've done in trying to help our supporters relate to those connections is we created a climate justice is racial justice page on our website. I think Mindy's going to drop that link in for you because we think it's important to share resources not only statements from IPL and our state affiliates, but also like what kind of really good work is happening on this, so that we can see those connections, and we can actually be part of the solution to those problems as we incorporate justice as a centerpiece to our work.
Thank you for that. Peterson, do we have a question from the audience? We have time for one or two.
We have lots of questions.
Oh goodness, okay.
There is a particular theme that's come up of folks who work with CCL. We're very concerned about carbon fee and dividend, and supporting HR 763 is the bill. And so a lot of people want to know, like, where do you stand on this as an organization? Do you have a standing on this? And how can groups work with you to support an endeavor like this?
Yeah, that's a great question, and actually one that I hoped would come up. I sort of assumed it would. One of the things that IPL took a lot of time to work on is with many other faith-based organizations, many of them in Washington, D.C. that we partner with. We worked on what is called faith principles for carbon pricing. I shared a link to that with Mindy. I think she'll probably drop it into the chat so you can go right to it. And so what I would say is that we have had a tradition of supporting some kind of carbon pricing mechanism through our history, and that has been on our policy page on our website. The thing that we thought was really important and sort of gets back to this conversation around centering justice in our work is sort of the divide that's been there between sort of what I would call traditional green groups and then environmental justice organizations. So a lot of environmental justice organizations have pushed back on carbon pricing because the fear is that it actually won't shut down, say, a coal-fired power plant that's running in their community. So what's the actual result on the ground in a community that is dealing with this pollution? And so there's been, some tension there. I think there's some real opening for conversations. And part of what we tried to do in our carbon pricing principles is to say, this is what we expect to have within any legislation around carbon pricing, and some of those justice principles are incorporated into that. So you'll see that language there that we've used. You'll also see the list of organizations that are, have endorsed this, all faith-based organizations, as I said, and trying to look at, like, yes, we think that carbon pricing is a mechanism, or carbon fee and dividend, I know as CCL's approaches, is one, can be one very good approach to actually addressing lowering carbon emissions. And we also want to be sure that communities are taken care of in this and aren't just continuing to bear the brunt of pollution in their communities by sort of offsetting their pollution somewhere else down the line. So you'll see that sort of like big tent approach that we're trying to take to be part of that conversation.
Right. There are questions about advice. People
need
advice actually on how to talk about faith issues.
I think we're going to run out of time, Peterson, as much as I'd love to answer more of these.
Well, I'll tell you what, you'll see, the contact information I shared. I was going to say, there's an invitation if anyone wants to connect with me and ask some questions. I would love that. I know that the time was tight today, but just know that you're invited to certainly be in conversation with us about this.
I've put in the chat all of the different links we talked about, and also
Perfect.
included, there's a number of faith-based action teams within CCL. So I want to be sure that people see those as well, as ways to further connect around this topic. And with that, Susan, I just want to thank you very much for your generosity of time and for sharing with us today. And thanks
Thank
to everyone
you.
for
Thanks all of
participating.
you for being here. It's so great to be with you, and good luck with the rest of your conference. And I know these online conferences are a little challenging, but also still a great way to build some community. So good luck with that.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Citizens Climate Lobby's training program. You can tune into more episodes anywhere podcasts are available. Inspired by what you heard today? Join Citizens Climate Lobby to advocate for bipartisan climate solutions. Go to community.citizensclimate.org to find more trainings, resources, your local chapter, national action teams, discussion forums, and more. Be sure to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and Instagram @CitizensClimate. We also invite all of our listeners to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more inspiration. And together, we are creating the political will for a livable world.